Hi everybody, this is Jo, and what we're going to do today is a tutorial on how to make an extended granny square. So it's a twist on the classic granny square pattern, but what we're going to do is extend it on two sides so it will become like an extended oblong rectangle. You can see you've got here the original granny square, and then what I've done is carried on two sides to extend it out this way, and it gives it this really nice jagged look along the edges, top and bottom, what I'm calling top and bottom, and it just creates this really nice effect. I think it would look really lovely in a scarf or shawl, either in one colour or a variegated yarn, something like this. Really pretty. This is a cotton yarn from Hobby online, and the colours are just beautiful. You can just imagine that in a shawl. Really pretty, but we're just going to be using the one colour today. This is a sample one that I made so that you can see the effects. We're going to be working in UK crochet terms. So what you're going to need is a crochet hook. I'm working with a 5.5mm crochet hook, and the yarn we're using is from Paintbox, which is available with Love Crafts online. It's a DK double knit yarn, which is kind of the mid thickness yarn, and it's probably the one that most people have used because it's probably the one that's most commonly available. On the band, it will tell you what it's made of, how many meters you'll get for the ball, etc. It tells you there the size is number 3 light, so it's kind of middle. And then if you go around on this one, it gives you the washing instructions, which is always handy, and then it tells you the information of what crochet hook to use. So you've got crochet hook 4mm, so I'm using slightly bigger because I'm going to be using a 5.5, but I just want it to be clear on the camera what I'm doing, and hopefully that will make it clearer with it being a slightly bigger hook. So crochet hook, yarn, snazzy pants scissors. Now you don't need snazzy pants scissors, you just need some scissors, but these are snazzy pants scissors, aren't they pretty? I just wanted to show them off really. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get started. If you are new to any of the stitches, then don't worry, I will show you as we go along. So we're going to start with magic circle, or a magic ring, you might see it called as well. It can be a tricky thing to get hold of, but I recently saw a tutorial from a fantastic creator, Blue Star Crochet, who I will give a link to in the description box, so that you can see her full tutorial on how to do the magic circle. I've seen several ways of doing it, and hers is by far the simplest I've seen, so we will be using her version of it today. So all you do is you take your yarn, you've got the tail end and the working end that's still attached to the ball. You wrap it around your finger 3 times with the tail end, 1, 2, 3, and then you take your crochet hook and you go under all 3 like that, and then just turn your hook so that the hook is facing upwards, and then pull that first loop back under the first 2, so you'll end up like that. And then with the working end of your yarn over and through, and that secures the magic circle. So we'll just do that again so you can clearly see what we're doing. So using the tail end of your yarn, 1, 2, 3, and then under all 3 loops, turn your hook, bring it back under the first 2 loops, so you've just got 1 hoop on your hook, and then using your working yarn over and then pull the hook through that one that's on the hook first. Okay, so you take that off your finger and we just start working, and we'll come back to how to tighten this up when we've done the first round. So now we have done the magic circle, we're going to start on our first round, and one way to start is to just simply crochet 3 chains. So yarn over 1, yarn over 2, yarn over 3. There's your 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. And that's a fine way of doing it, but there's a neater way that you can do it, and that, if you choose to stick with the 3 chains, that is roughly the same height as the crochet stitch that we're going to be used to make the granny square with. But if you want to do a neater way, or if you're feeling a bit more confident, then go back to your initial hoop, loop, hoop. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a double crochet in UK terms, single crochet in US terms. So hook into the magic circle, so you've got the 2 strands of yarn of the magic circle on your hook, yarn over, pull your hook back through those 2 yarns, then yarn over and through both stitches on the hook. That's 1 double crochet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make what's called a stacked treble crochet. And what that means is we're going to do 3 of those stitches on top of each other to make a very neat treble looking stitch. Makes perfect sense. So what we're going to do, instead of crocheting back into the circle, we're going to crochet into that first leg. See these 2 legs here? We're going to put our needle under that first leg. Don't worry if you have to use your finger or nail to push it over, it can be quite tight. So you just pop that under there, yarn over, back through the 1 loop, and then yarn over, back through 2. Okay, and now we're going to do exactly the same. You see the first leg there, that loose stitch just there, just over the working yarn, hook into there, yarn over and through, yarn over and through both. Now you can see we'll have 1, 2, 3 double crochets stacked on top of each other, and that effectively makes a 1 treble crochet. But you can see down the side it looks a lot neater, and if you are doing crocheting in rows, then that is a fantastic method to use at the start, because it means that the whole side of your blanket or scarf or shawl or whatever it is that you're making will look really neat. We'll come back to that in a future tutorial, but it's a really nice method to use if you're feeling confident enough. If you're not, just do the 3 chains. It's the same whichever you use, the next step is the same. So we've got a stacked treble crochet there. So all we're going to do now is we're going to do our first round, and that starts with another treble crochet, but this time a proper treble crochet. So we put our yarn over before we do anything, and then we put a hook through the magic circle, we put our yarn over again, and then pull our hook back through the magic circle. So we've now got 3 loops on our hook, yarn over again, and then we pull our hook back through 1, 2, and then yarn over and pull your hook through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. That is a treble crochet there. Okay, so now we've effectively got 2 treble crochets, so we need 1 more, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Now we've got 3 treble crochets. So with the granny square, when you're working in corners, you do 2 chains, and the aim of this first round is to create the corners so that we can crochet into them from there on. So what we need to do next is 2 chains. So yarn over 1, yarn over 2. Nice and simple, 2 chains. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same again, three treble crochets, but this time not doing a stacked one, just doing an ordinary one. So yarn over into the circle, yarn over, back out of the circle, then yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Okay, next one, yarn over into the circle, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Last one in this little group, yarn over into the circle, yarn over out of the circle, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Okay, so that is our first corner. So we've got our first corner there. So what we need to do now is replicate that around the circle, and then we'll have our first round of the granny square. So next thing, 2 chains again to do our next corner. So 1, 2, and then yarn over into the circle, yarn over out, yarn over, pull your hook through the 2 loops, yarn over through the next 2 loops, and then yarn over into the circle, yarn over, back through, yarn over through the 2, and then yarn over through 2. So we've got 1, 2 treble crochets there. We need one more, works in groups of 3. Yarn over into the circle, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops. Okay, so we've got 2 corners. Chain 1, 2 for our third corner, yarn over into the circle, yarn over out, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over into the circle, yarn over, back out, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through the next 2 loops. Okay, yarn over for the last treble crochet into this little group of 3, into the circle, yarn over, back out, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through the next 2 loops. So we've got 1, 2, 3 circles, but because we started with the 3 crochets, if we do any more we'll end up with 5 corners, which we don't want. So what we need to do is we need to do 2 chains, and that is what will link us then back to the beginning. But before we do that, we need to pull this magic circle tight. So if you look at the 2 strands of the magic circle, you've got the tail end there. You need to pull on the one that's coming out of the same gap as the tail end. So keep hold of your crochet and pull. Keep pulling and you'll end up with this loop. Keep pulling till the centre is tight, the centre circle is tight. Like that, and keep getting this loop. So we've got this loop in the tail end. So then, fingers crossed, all we need to do is to pull the tail end. I've pulled it, don't want it to knot, so I'm just going to pull it back out that side. So I just need to pull the tail end, and that will pull that loop in. There we go, and we pull it nice and tight. And now you can see how tight that corner, the centre circle is now. I'll show you a comparison. This one was done using the chain method, and you can see there how loose the centre is. Just there. So that's doing it with the chain method, and that's doing it with the magic circle. Okay, so you can clearly see there how much difference it makes. Okay, so we've got our 2 chains and we've got our we need to join to the first treble crochet. So if you turn your crochet so that you can see the tops of the stitches, you can see the tops of the 3 treble crochets. There's one, there's another, and there's the third. That's the stacked one, and that's what we need to work into next. So you put your crochet hook under those 2 strands of yarn, the top of that stitch. So now you'll have on your hook those 2 strands of yarn for the top of the stitch and the original loop that was on your hook to start with. So we need to do what's called a slip stitch now. So we go yarn over, pull through the yarn from the top of the stitch, and then pull straight through the original hoop that was on your hook. And you'll now have 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. Okay, so that's the first round done. Easy, easy peasy. So what we need to do now is we need to turn our work. If you don't turn your work with a granny square, it can look wonky, and that's sometimes why when you see a granny square it does look a bit skew, but that's wise, because when it's been made, the person who made it hasn't turned their work. They've kept going round and round and round with the same side facing them. If you want to stop it looking skew, then you need to turn it. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to turn it so the other side of the work is facing us, so what you would consider maybe the wrong side of the work, because we've got the tail. And what we need to do now is we need to do another slip stitch into this gap, which is the corner. So we're going to pop our hook through there, and I'm going to yarn over, back out of the space, and then through the original hook. And all that does is it centers us back into that space there, so we can clearly tell we're working in the corner and not attached to the top of that stitch. So it moves us along one without creating a bulky stitch. So we're going to do exactly the same again as we did on the start here. We're going to do a stacked treble crochet. So put your hook into the gap, into the corner gap, yarn over, and then pull it back out of the gap, yarn over, and through both hoops on your hook. So we've got our first double crochet. You can clearly see the leg there that we need to go into, this strand of wool there. So pop your hook underneath it. So now I've got 2 hoops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first hoop, and then yarn over through both hoops on the hook. So we've got 2, 1, 2. So we need our final part of the treble stacked crochet. So there's the leg there. So we're just going to go through that, yarn over, pull through the first hoop, and then yarn over, pull through both. So we've now got 1, 2, 3. That's our stacked treble crochet. So we're going to carry on now. So we need to do our first treble then into this corner. So yarn over, into the corner, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Same again, yarn over into the corner, yarn over, back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. And that is the first part of the round 2 done. So then we're going to skip straight over to the next corner, to the next chain 2 gap on the previous row, and we're going to do our corner. So every corner is made of 3 treble crochets, 2 chains, and 3 treble crochets. So that is what we need to do into this gap. So yarn over into the next chain 2 gap here, yarn over, pull it back through, yarn over, pull your hook through the first 2 hoops, yarn over through the next 2 hoops. That's 1. Same again, yarn over into the hook, into the corner, yarn over, pull your hook back out, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2 trebles, yarn over into the corner, yarn over, pull your hook back out, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, 1, 2, 3 trebles. Okay, now we do our 2 chains, 1, 2, and then 3 trebles, mirroring the other side to create that corner. So yarn over into the space again, yarn over, pull your hook back through, yarn over, pull your hook through the first 2, yarn over, hook through the next 2, 1 treble crochet, yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull that back through, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2 treble crochets, 1 more, yarn over into the gap, yarn over, pull it back through, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, 1, 2, 3. So that's a corner. That construction will always stay the same. It will always be 3 treble crochets, 2 chains, 3 treble crochets into every corner. Okay, that's a bit loose there, look, never mind. So we're going to do exactly the same in the next corner. So first treble crochet, there you go, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over, do our mirroring 3 treble crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, next corner, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. Right, so this is where we started now. There's the stacked treble crochet and there's the 2 crochets next to it. So same principle applies. Every corner is 3 crochets and 2 chains. So we need to do the mirror of that 3 crochets in this corner as well. So straight from that corner, yarn over into that space there, and we do our group of 3 treble crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then we do a slip stitch to the top. If we turn it so that you can see the tops of the stitches, there's 1, 2, 3, same again, put the hook under the 2 strands of yarn that make the top of that first treble, and then yarn over through the next one for a slip stitch. So that's round 2. Okay, so we're going to turn our work again back onto this side, and we're going to slip stitch into that corner to anchor us into that corner again. So into the gap, yarn over, and then pull back through there and back through the stitch on your hook. Okay, and then we're going to do our stacked crochet, treble crochet here again. So into the corner, yarn over, back out, yarn over through both, and then find your leg, which is that there, and then underneath that, yarn over through that, yarn over through the 2. So we've got 1, 2 legs, and then under there again for the third part of the stack, yarn over through the leg, yarn over through both hoops. So that's our stacked treble. So yarn over, 1, 2 trebles in that corner. There's our first group of 3 trebles. Okay, and then what we need to do now is we've got this gap between these 2 groups of 3 trebles, and all we're going to do is same again, straight into that gap, 3 treble crochets. So yarn over into that gap, yarn over and through, and we're going to do a group of 3 treble crochets. There we go, 1, 2, 3, and into the corner. 1, 2, 3, and then chain 2 for the corner and 3 more treble crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's our first side of that round done. Okay, and then we're going to go into that gap there. 1, 2, 3, and then into the next corner. 1, 2, 3, 2 chains for the corner, and then 1, 2, 3. So you should have, there's where we started. If you're struggling to see where we start because it looks flat along that side, then what you could do is put a stitch marker into the top of that stitch there, if it helps you to be able to see it. Let me just find the stitch marker. So stitch markers are sometimes look like that, like a little padlock, and they're really useful for marking points in a pattern where you might need to do an increase or a decrease, or where there's a corner. Some patterns, when you do a corner, they're difficult to see, but in this instance, because that first stitch you might miss it, I mean, it would be easy to miss that. What you can do is find the top of the first treble, so there's 1, 2, 3, and all you do is you slide that under those 2 hoops, just where you would put your hook, and then lock it. And then you've got like this little padlock that's there to mark out the first stitch, so you know when you get back to that, that's where you're going to do your slip stitch and start your next round. Okay, so what I'd like to do is complete this round, do the first of the 3 treble crochets in that corner, and I will meet you back there ready to join. So we're back now. I've just done the first treble in that last corner, so I'm just going to do my treble 2, there we go, and the 3rd treble. Okay. So chain 2 to do the corner, and now I'm going to crochet into the top of that. So unlock your stitch marker, pop it out, and then slip stitch into the top of that stitch where your stitch marker was. Okay, so we carry on exactly the same, and you do as many rounds as you want until your granny square is big enough on the diagonal from there to there, and that's the measurement that you're going to be most interested in. Is if we look at this original square, there's the original granny square, so I think that's 6 rounds, and then extending just on the 2 sides then, so it's that height. Once you get to there, that's the height that your square is going to stay the whole way along then. So if you're doing a scarf or a table runner or a shawl, anything like that, make sure that you've got the height that you want before you stop doing the rounds on the original granny square. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more rounds. We've done 1, 2, 3, so I'm going to do 2 more and I will see you back here. Right, so I've done now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. Back to the beginning. This time I'm not going to turn the work, I'm going to carry on going with this side facing. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a slip stitch into that first stitch there. 1. So you will have 2 slip stitches in that first stitch. One will be to join, the second one is to create the edging that we're going to get. So slip stitch into the top of the next stitch and slip stitch into the top of the next one. So we've got 3 slip stitches and then a slip stitch into that gap. Okay, and now what we need to do is do our stacked treble crochet. So into the gap, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both, yarn over into the leg, yarn over through the leg, yarn over through both. One more, yarn over through the leg, yarn over through both. So there's our first stacked. So we're going to go make our next 2 treble crochets in that group there, 1, 2, 3, and then just carry on as normal along this side. 3 treble crochets into each gap. One, 2, 3, and now we're at the corner. Same again. 1, 2, 3, 2 chains, 1, 2. Onto the other side now. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to crochet back down to that gap there. So on this side then, we don't go right to the corner. We do our group of 3 treble crochets in the next to last. There's the corner. We do our 3 treble crochets into that corner and then we stop. Turn the work there. Okay, and now we do a slip stitch into the top of the 3 treble crochets again, exactly the same as we did. So under the 2 loops of the first treble crochet there, you can see, yarn over through both, and then same again, yarn over through both. The hardest thing with a slip stitch is to keep it loose. It naturally pulls quite tight, so try and keep your stitch as loose as you can. I am not very good at that. I'm not very good at keeping that loose. So into that one, yarn over through the first and the second. So we've got 3 slip stitches, and we're going to go into the gap for another slip stitch, and then we're going to do our stacked treble crochet. So there's our first part. 1, 2, 3, and then back to the groups of 3 treble crochets. So you can see now you're starting to get that jagged edge along the bottom and the top, and the rest of the pattern is just simply repeating that last row. So crocheting all along the sides, 1 corner, and then all along the second side until you come to the next to end gap, so you don't go any further than that. You go into that last gap there, and then turn, slip stitch to the next gap, stack treble crochet, and then back along. So your rows will only ever be that long. They'll never get any longer than that now. So that's the nice thing. Sometimes when you're doing a granny square, because you just keep going round and round, if you're doing a big granny square blanket, like for a bed or a chair or something, sometimes it can take up to an hour to do one round when you get towards the end. So it's nice to have something that's just quite quick. And once you get into it, doing the treble crochets, and it becomes quite mindful then, and it becomes really quite relaxing, and you get into a nice rhythm. And if you've got a hook that the yarn slides easily, and you're using a yarn that isn't, some yarns like this is made of different plies put together. You can see the individual strands of the wool, of the yarn. Some of them fall apart and you end up putting your hook through the yarn rather than around it. And they can be quite frustrating to work with after a while because you keep putting your hook through it. But with this yarn, it is really nice to use, and especially because you're putting your hook through the gaps rather than the stitches a lot of the time. It is a nice mindful, you can get into a nice rhythm. I'm not saying you should, but you could maybe watch telly while you're doing it, or you could even be by a beach somewhere nice, or although this would be okay by a beach because it wouldn't get too big that you'd be under it and you'd be boiling. So it's quite good to get into a nice little routine. I'm not saying you should, but maybe you could pop some Buffy on the telly and have a bit of a 90s retro time of it with some Buffy, or you could pop some music on, maybe some Prince. There's some good stuff there, and maybe just listen to a bit of music, or put a musical soundtrack on, like Hamilton or something like that, and just relax. And after a while, the stitches will just flow, and you will just relax into it. Just check every so often that you are doing 3, because you might get into it too much and forget how many you've done. And you just keep going. You can just imagine it, birds singing in the trees while you're sitting there doing a nice little bit of mindful crochet. And at the end of it, you'll have something beautiful that you can wear or put in your house, or give as a gift to somebody. So we're just down at the last gap on that side. So we're just going to turn and slip stitch into that first treble crochet there. But try and keep it loose if you can. Yarn over through the loop, and then yarn over through both. So we've done our 3 slip stitches into the tops of the stitches, and then 1 into the gap. And then same again, stacked treble crochet. There. And then carry on. So you can see now it's starting to take shape and starting to elongate out that way. I said at the beginning that you could, if you didn't want to do the stacked treble crochet, what you could do is chain 3. And all that is you still do your slip stitch as normal into that first, into the gap, and then instead of doing a stacked treble crochet, you just do 1, 2, 3, and that will count then as your first treble, and then you can just carry on then. So comparison, you can see there's a stacked treble there, and there's the 3 chains. So the 3 chains looks not dissimilar. In some ways it might look better because it's a bit thinner than the stacked treble crochet, but the key difference is when you are working down the sides, you get that all the way down, and it looks a lot neater than a row of chains. It's hard to see a true comparison there, but if you're working on a blanket and you want to put an edging onto it as well, it's much easier to work into those because they're just the tops of the stitches that you did. So that's the top of 2 double crochets there, and then that's the top of the stacked treble. So you just work into them like you would a normal stitch. Whereas if you've got chains, it's quite hard to get into the chains sometimes. Sometimes you end up having to drop down a hook size and try and get into it, so it can be a bit trickier. But that's it. It's keep going on exactly the same until you've got it out to the length that you want it to. So this was, like I said, a sample one that I did. You can see they're a bit longer version of the pattern. This was done on a smaller hook, different wool, but you can see there that's what you're heading towards. Like I said, it'll make a lovely scarf, lovely table runner, anything you want really. It's really a really flexible little thing that you will enjoy making, that it will be really nice and mindful for you to do. You'll just sink into a rhythm with it, and you'll enjoy it. Well, you will, I'll make sure. So thank you very much for coming along to my tutorial. I will put all the links that you need into the description box. I will also have this written as a blog post with it in writing if you prefer to see it that way. And if you aren't already, please pop along to my Facebook group, where I am going to be looking at all aspects of crochet and bringing people together to support each other to learn what is a fantastic skill, and a skill that, like you've seen today, can be very mindful, very practical, and also very enjoyable. So thank you very much for your time, and if you like this video, please click and subscribe. Thank you very much.